Visit licensuraexams.com and try our samples completely free of charge. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our Licensure Exams podcast. I'm Stacey Frost, your slightly younger and the more decidedly continental host, just getting back from an armchair travel overseas.
And I'm Dr. Linton Hutchinson, your slightly older and parochial-focused co-host.
Well, one of our podcast members from England got in touch and wanted the lowdown on employee assistance programs, or EAPs, specifically how confidentiality is handled with EAPs. So that's what we're going to be chatting about today. Now, Linton, I reckon you've been around long enough to remember when confidentiality was just about keeping mum in a small hamlet. Am I right?
Right. Well, back in my day, Stacey, confidentiality was scribbled on a parchment and sealed with wax. But yes, it's come a long way since then. But don't go thinking we're talking about the British CI confidential program you're so keen on.
Oh, those Brits know how to make a proper drama for the telly. But in all seriousness, confidentiality is the cornerstone of what we do as therapists, and it's especially important when it comes to EAPs. So let's break it down and make sure our listeners leave with a clear understanding of how to navigate this tricky territory.
Okay, let's get a wiggle on and get a quick summary of the information you may need on for the exam. What do you reckon, Stacey?
Sounds like a plan to me.
Well, right. Let's get cracking on the EAP business, shall we? It's a bit of a sticky wicket, if you ask me. You might be wondering, what the bloody hell is an EAP? Well, an employment assistance program is a work-based intervention scheme designed to help employees sort out all kinds of personal issues that might affect their job performance and general well-being. Jolly useful, wouldn't you say? Therapists working with an EAP support employees through short-term counseling and referrals, balancing care when reporting obligations, bit of a tightrope walk, really. What about confidentiality in EAP? Stacey?
Well, confidentiality is the bread and butter of therapy, but in an EAP setting, there are a few more layers to it than your average Victoria sponge.
My gosh, Stacey, you've been watching that British baking show with Paul Hollywood, haven't you?
Hey, you're the one who turned me on to it. But I do recall you saying you were quite fond of that older lady, Prue, who I think is just about your age. But back to the EAP, you also need to remember that as a therapist, you must keep mum about client matters while ticking certain boxes and adhering to certain reporting requirements, like utilization reporting. So a therapist may need to provide non-identifying aggregate data to the EAP for statistical or utilization reporting purposes. For example, the number of sessions that were used. Compliance with sessions. The EAP may require information on whether the client attended sessions and adhered to the treatment plan, though this typically doesn't include detailed content from the sessions. General progress reports. Some EAPs may require general reports on progress, such as whether the employee is following through with treatment recommendations, and these reports usually also avoid specifics about the content of therapy. Return to work assessments. In some cases, therapists might provide feedback on a client's readiness to return to work, particularly if the EAP was accessed due to workplace-related issues. And this generally includes providing information about the number of sessions attended, but again, not any detailed content from the sessions. Then there's mandated reporting. So child abuse, elder abuse, or dependent adult abuse. You are required to report any suspected abuse or neglect of minors, elders, or dependent adults, regardless of the EAP context. And in some jurisdictions, domestic violence. These reports are made to appropriate authorities, not necessarily to the employer, unless there's an immediate threat to workplace safety. Threats of harm to self or others. If a client experiences a clear and immediate threat of harm to themselves or others, you as a therapist may need to break confidentiality to warn potential victims or notify authorities. And then there's substance abuse monitoring. For certain industries, for example, transportation and healthcare, EAPs may be involved in random drug testing programs, monitoring employees in recovery, reporting on compliance with treatment plans, and this is highly regulated and must comply with industry-specific guidelines. For example, the Department of Transportation regulations in the United States. Obligations can vary based on local laws, industry regulations, and specific employer EAP agreements. Confidentiality is a key consideration in all EAP reporting.
When you submit hours for payment to the entity that provides services that you work for, you may be asked therapy questions such as level of anxiety, depression, or anger, and what treatment goals were worked on. Well, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Remember, confidentiality isn't just a legal obligation, it's a foundation of trust between you and your clients. Keep that trust strong, even within the unique context of an EAP.
And if you have any questions or topics that you want us to cover in future podcast episodes, don't hesitate to reach out. We love hearing from our listeners. All right, everyone, until next time, stay safe, stay ethical, and keep studying for your exam. It's in there.
It's in there.